All right. Happy Let's Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Georgette. I'm the mom. That's TJ.
And I'm
He's the
TJ.
son.
I was trying to mess with my belly. I'm TJ. I'm the son.
And we both work and study in the field of psychology, and we are passionate about sharing what we know with you so that you can live your best life.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about humility.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk about how bad of a job you did angling this. Okay, continue.
Humility
Jeez.
is a modest or low view of one's importance.
Oh,
Humbleness.
okay.
Yeah. The words humble and humility actually come from the root word humilis. Humilis is Latin for low or close to the ground.
Okay, grounded. That makes sense. I like a low center of gravity. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Humble is the adjective, whereas humility is the noun, in case you were wondering. I've got a technical writing background, so that kind of interests me.
I was going to say, thanks for the language arts background. I'll be sure to put that on my next final. Oh, wait, I don't have any more. What's next?
Humble people don't downplay their accomplishments, or humble people didn't downplay their accomplishments or characteristics. They simply didn't think they should be treated special because of them. That was what was said in something I read, and I thought that was interesting. And it's kind of in line with what Lewis Carroll says, the author of Alice in Wonderland. He says, true humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less, which I think is really kind of cool. And it's almost contrary to what happens in society these days. You know, social networking has created this generation that's obsessed with likes and shares, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me. You know, that's kind of what our generation looks like, or the current generation.
Yeah. When you're good at something, you'll remind, when you're good at something, you'll remind others. When you're great at something, they'll remind you.
Yeah.
So it is really taking into consideration, how much am I choosing to utilize myself as a focal point? Maybe keeping in mind that keeping others as a focal point, keeping myself grounded is a good way to keep myself consciously, grounded and more mindful throughout the entirety of the day, maybe.
Yeah. Older generations, I think, sometimes might see humility as a sign of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of interesting too, that perception that might be out there. I think humility,
there's no weakness in you having a strong opinion of yourself and not needing to hear it from others. It's really weak if you need to have that reinforced. I mean, it's not weak. Because it's obviously something that we all get improved from, but there's going to be chances where you don't get that validation. So it's really good for you to identify within yourself, because it's not very often you're going to get it from the external world, and you're not going to hear it as clear and as perfect as you can give it to yourself. So really that humility is just the sign that that voice on the inside is already much more powerful than any type of external factors. So which one are you putting more stock into?
Humility is one of my favorite traits in people. I think that I have read that people who are humble are a blessing to people around them, because it lets other people around them be a little bit more authentic, and authenticity is one of my favorite things as well. I like those two traits in people, and I strive to do those in myself constantly, always. There are a lot of psychological benefits to being humble. And, and I look at the benefits of different personality traits. This was the most extensive list I've seen specifically related to a trait. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They say humble people handle stress more effectively.
Makes sense to me.
They report higher levels of physical and mental well-being.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
They have a calm sense of self-mastery. Yeah. They have a higher level of self-control. They know their limits.
Of course.
Yeah. They deal with their own mortality better. I thought this was an interesting one. They know that, the world goes on, after them, right?
We are but a speck.
Better social relationships. They accept people for who they are and are also more likely to apologize. Even if they didn't do anything wrong, being sorry that somebody else is upset, like, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. You'll see that more in people who are humble. They tend to be more forgiving, more grateful, more cooperative, right? And they also tend to be less prejudiced. I thought this was an interesting one too, because this is something I immediately thought of as a benefit. But that's because they have a lower sense of entitlement. They recognize all people as being equal, themselves included. So I thought that was a really kind of a neat list. And if you didn't think humility was a good trait to have before, I think you probably have changed your mind.
You just need to practice humility a little bit more consciously, making it more of a subconscious pattern.
They show greater generosity, helpfulness, and gratitude, better academic job performance. They're more focused on their work, and they're more objective about their work too. And they also say they see an excellence in leadership skills in people who are humble, because their people have increased loyalty and productivity. Yeah. So I think that's neat. When you can empathize with your people who are, helping you get your work done, it's important, I think.
Yeah. Sounds like something to constantly strive for, right? And this is one of those things that we kind of talked about in the previous video last week about sacrifice. Like, it's going to be easy for you to not want to automatically be humble, right? But it's going to take some practice. And the more that you consciously develop it with your thoughts and with your behaviors of applying it, the more likely that it's going to be something that becomes, a part of your personality, which is something that you ultimately want. So it just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of awareness, a little bit of identification of what am I doing to work on my humility today?
Yeah, psychologists refer to humility as a quiet ego, which I think is kind of a neat way to look at it.
Calm ego, content.
Yeah.
Content
You're
ego,
at peace. Yeah. What do humble people do differently? 10 things. They don't think they know everything. Right. They make others feel special. I like that one.
Cutesy.
Yeah. They don't forget to love themselves.
Treat yourself.
They live in the heart rather than in the mind. They are happy in the happiness of others.
Of course.
They like to share what they have. They admit their mistakes.
Admit your mistakes.
They prefer listening to talking.
Try listening over talking your next conversation consciously.
Well, I heard once, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you should speak. When talking, they don't talk about themselves.
Try not talking about yourself.
Yeah. And they're not bloated with pride when they achieve something.
Sore winners. Oh, my least favorite. The sore winners and sore losers. You won. Cool. Relax. Let's act like you've won before. Let's act like it's a thing. Shh. The more that you roar like that, the more that it's that overcompensation.
Yeah, that goes to that quote you said earlier. Yeah.
Come on, bro. Relax.
I like this part of that point too. Give credit where credit is due. I love to work as a team with people at work. I didn't used to, but as I've gotten older, I actually enjoy, and I realize that the product is better when you work as a team. But along those same lines, it's really important to make sure that the team gets credits. It doesn't matter that you're the leader; the team should get the credit. So.
You'd be amazed with what you'd be able to accomplish if you didn't care so much about who got the credit.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Let that marinate. Like a steak, boy.
So how do you cultivate humility? How do you increase it? Well, there are things that we've talked about a lot already. These are habits that we've stressed each week. Embrace your humanness is one thing. Realize that you are human. Realize that you make a mistake. Forgive yourself when you make a mistake.
So that means you have to consciously stop yourself when you start to say that, oh, you suck, you're this, you're that. You made a mistake. It's fine. On to the next one. You learn. Introduce diaphragmatic breathing, this or that. Practicing the mistake not being that big of a deal and you having more resiliency.
Right. They say that this ability to embrace your humanness actually stems from secure attachment. So attachment is that a healthy emotional bond that you get with your caregivers that are formed in childhood. And, so if you're raising children now, think about that attachment level that you're creating, because what it does is that unconditional love serves as a buffer to help build resiliency and to help all other relationships throughout somebody's lifetime. So that's embrace your humanness. Now, the next one is practice mindfulness and self-compassion. Of course, this is also linked to resilience and emotional well-being. Humble people have an accurate picture of themselves. They know what their limitations are. And when you practice mindfulness, what you're doing is you're growing that self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my self-awareness. Try to identify at this moment what are some positive things that you like about yourself, what are some negative things that you dislike about yourself, what are some things that you can do consciously today that can help build on some of those negative things, what are some things that you can do consciously that will help cultivate those more positive emotions, having more of a mindfulness of where you're currently at in this moment, because we have found that it takes longer to change our mind about things than it does to actually change the thing itself. So it's going to take a little bit longer for you to make these positive changes and to kind of accept it in the mind. So by you consciously doing it a little bit more, by creating that mindfulness, drawing attention towards it, you're going to increase the likelihood of you getting that better understanding and more understanding, more humility, because the more that you have that secure attachment more so towards yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was talking to somebody who works for me the other day, and I had given her something to do, and I didn't realize it, but I think it was stressing her out. And we had a conversation recently about it, and she was telling me that she just wanted to be honest and say that what I'm asking her to do is not something she's comfortable with or something that she enjoys. And I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate you telling me that, because that I can work with. You know, all those other defense mechanisms that you're putting out there, those I can't work with.
That's
but
deep.
I can work with you honestly assessing where you're at and what your needs are.
Can't work with defense mechanisms.
Yes. Yeah.
I could go on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I think so.
The third thing you can do to cultivate your own humility is to express gratitude. We talk about this all the time. It's one of our favorites.
Because your brain doesn't consciously look around, or your brain doesn't automatically look around and say, oh, I'm grateful for all these things. The more that you consciously take the time throughout your day to say, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. If you did it for 12 hours in your day, the likelihood of you increasing your mindset would be greatly improved. The more that you can utilize gratitude as a focal point, the more likely that will become a focal point no matter what the external stimuli is in your life. So consciously creating gratitude, the more likely you will do so on your own, the more likely you will be humbled, because it's a little bit easier for us to, feel kind of that entitlement when we, aren't consciously aware of the things that we should be grateful for. Right. Brain kind of forgets those things very quickly unless you consciously bring awareness to it and create more of that pathway. So practice. I get asked it all the time, how I get such positive mindset. It's just, you have to practice. It's a skill. Practice the skill. And your brain will eventually say, oh my goodness, this person keeps creating such conscious gratitude. Let me adapt and normalize myself to this new normal that is being created. Your brain is on your side and will do it more if you consciously do it more, but it will not do it more if you're waiting for it to do more on its own.
So doing that takes the focus really off of ourselves and more on the external around us and the people around us. So you're automatically more humble when you practice those. So I think we've given you some good reasons to want to be more humble and some good ways to get there.
Get there, son.
So practice that this week, and we will see you next week.
We will see you next week.
Let's Talk About It Tuesday.
Taco Bout It Tuesday.